Could this finally be the year Jalen Brunson breaks through and finishes top 3 in MVP? That and so many more bold predictions coming up next on this Locked On Knicks Film School crossover.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the Knicks for nearly a decade and the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. So be sure to check me out there. This is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you us detailed insight on your favorite team 5 whole days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans and subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, guys, today we are joined for part 2 of our bold prediction series with the Knicks Film School squad. We have predictions covering big seasons for Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, the Knicks 3-point shooting. It is me, it is XJ, it is Jonathan Macri, it is the legend Jeremy Cohen. It is going to be a blast. We'll get it to you right now without any further ado. All right, guys, as promised, it is time. Part 2 of the greatest annual crossover in Knicks podcasting, at least that I know of. It is the boys from Knicks Film School to make some bold predictions. Jonathan Macri, Jeremy Cohen joining the show. Guys, how you doing? How do you enjoy part 1?
I had a lot of fun. There were some takes. I made one of them, and I enjoyed myself.
I'm buzzing, you know? How could you not be? It's that time of the year. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Anything can happen. So
I can tell it might just be the lighting, but you guys both have a certain glow to you that I could tell you're having great nights. All right. I wanted to say without further ado, let's get into this, but we skipped something on your portion of the show that is probably always my favorite part of this, and that is going over the past predictions from last year. Actually, I'm sorry you were left out of this, but next year you will get to be involved.
I cannot be laughed at, so that's nice.
I'm going to do you the favor of not crediting Alex's to you because I just went back and looked at our Twitter and they were mostly not good. But I'm going to pull them up on this weird graphic because screenshots don't post well. This is from Andrew Claudio texted them to me while we were doing this. So shout out to your producers throwing you guys under the bus potentially. Jeremy's were, and I did not check these, so we're just going to have to do it live. Cohen plays over 500 minutes this season. I don't think that happened. Jalen Brunson finishes over 68% at the rim. I think he was either at 66 or 64. He did make a big leap, but it was not over 68. And Mitchell Robinson trade yields a top 100 player. How about we say the Mitchell Robinson non-trade yields a top 100 player named Mitchell Robinson? That
played.
Kind of worked.
Yeah,
let's see John's real quick. Deuce starts more games than nope. Just for the people listening on the pods, Deuce starts more games than Hart, but Hart finishes more games than Deuce. There are less than 200 minutes remaining in Mitchell Robinson's Knicks career. Cat makes the All-Star team. Yes. One of 6 for the KFS guys, who, to be fair, I think the year before you guys blew us out in correct predictions. So you were due for a downturn. Mine were Mikal Bridges' shot hitch continues to be a problem. He shoots under 34% from 3 for the first time since his rookie year, despite playing in arguably the best offensive context of his career. This was wrong, but close. He shot 35% from 3. So I like the idea there. This one was a banger, I think. The Knicks hold on to Mitch, and he starts next to Cat. Oh, actually, this was wrong in their first playoff game. If I just said in a playoff game, it would have been right. Okay, so I've got 2 halves so far. Third one, we don't have to talk about. OG Anunoby makes all defense first team for the first time in his career. He did finish 11th, so close-ish. Alex's 3, shout out to my guy. Brunson wins MVP. Nope, though we'll have something similar to that today. The Knicks are top 5 3-point team in makes, takes, and percentage. Not good. And then his final one is correct. This is the only true blue correct one. OG appears in over 65 games in the regular season. He nailed it. So shout out to Alex. Only one who's not here, only one to get one right. So you guys should not take anything we say in this too seriously. And with that, John, I throw it to you. What is your first prediction?
All right. So you guys thought I was spicy with my Mitchell Robinson first team all defense prediction from our half of the episode. Well, we're about to go into the deep end of the pool. And I'm going to, Alex, I shout out to Alex. I can't go as far as he went predicting Brunson would win MVP. I'm going to predict he finishes third. And I don't have a super complicated rationale for this one. I think he is going to be viewed as maybe not the best player in the East, but the best player in the East who is in realistic contention for this award. I don't know if that means Giannis is going to miss some games. I don't know if it means the Bucks are going to be a little bit too far out of it, but I think Jalen Brunson will kind of solidify himself as like, all right, he is the class of the East again when it comes to thinking about who is the most valuable player. So then it comes down to the heavy hitters in the West, and you could argue there are 4, which is I think what makes this a very hot take. Obviously Nikola Jokic, who is Nikola Jokic. I don't know what else you say about him. SGA, who's defending champ, and there are more back-to-back winners in this awards history than you might think. Luka Doncic, who I think was my preseason prediction to win MVP like 3 or 4 straight years. I think I finally came off of it last year. I might go back to it this year. I think he's going to have an awesome season. And then I don't know if anybody has taken the time to watch some of what Victor Wembanyama has been doing in scary basketball games this preseason. It's frankly frightening. So it is entirely conceivable that Brunson could be the best player in the East, have a wonderful statistical season. The narrative can develop of like he changed his game. He is like sacrificing for the betterment of the team, and he's this, that, and the other thing. He's defending maybe a little bit better. All those sorts of things. And the Knicks could be first in the East, and he can still finish 5th. That's entirely. It's. I would dare I say it is likely. So that's why it's spicy. I guess maybe I'm banking on, what am I banking on? I'm banking on one of those teams in the West, maybe as a play-in team, and it kind of knocks one of those guys out of it. Likely San Antonio, or I guess maybe the Lakers. We'll see. Maybe there's an injury. Maybe somebody misses some games. You never know with OKC how conservatively are they going to play the regular season. I don't know. So I'm banking on a little bit of luck. No doubt about it, but that's what I got.
Jeremy, you were fairly dismissive of John's first take. He says this one is even hotter. I'm going to let you cook, man. What do you think about it?
So as I was gathering my affairs in order, because I know I'm going to, Joe, you said top 5, was it?
3. I think I said top 3.
Top 3.
I said 3rd. I didn't even say, I said 3rd.
Okay, so 3rd. I love the take. I really do. It's largely going to be health. That's going to be a significant factor. If we're saying that Brunson's averages come down a bit and becomes a better team player, yes, that leads to winning, and you would hope that stands out. But again, I lean on crowning players and marketing players, and you'd think, well, who better to market than the King of New York? And at least as I would consider him, considering how the Yankees decide to perform, unfortunately. But with that in mind, I would love to see him 3rd. I just feel as though we're probably seeing him closer to 7, 8, somewhere in that range, just based on that sheer talent alone. And just, yeah, it truly goes to how, not even the usage, but his game is going to change. He's going to be a bit more off ball than we've seen before. And for the MVP award, I can't help but wonder how high these usage rates for these players are. And if you're doing less but contributing more, when it comes to the voting, do you lose points there? Is it fair? I don't necessarily think so, but it's less, you stand out a bit less. So I would love it, but I think he'll be a little bit lower on that list.
XJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I largely am with you, Jeremy. I think my steel man for this would be, for this to happen, the Knicks have to win the East. They just have to win the East. I think that's the biggest argument for this. The Knicks win the East. Number 1 team in the Eastern Conference is the New York Knicks for the first time in however many years, and that's you get behind the narrative machine. Somebody has to be a top 3 MVP candidate if that happens, and then obviously it'll go to Jalen Brunson. But to Jeremy's point and case, I just think the usage is going to come down, the minutes are going to come down, the counting stats are going to come down. And I think it'll be difficult for voters to really put Brunson up there when we see all of those things come down, unless the team success is so much clearly better that it becomes kind of inarguable that you got to put somebody up there. So I think it's just like a pretty cut and dry case of just like, unfortunately, the metrics and things that voters use to make these kinds of decisions are not the ones that are really going to confer whether Jalen Brunson is actually a better, more impactful player or not. And if they were, I'd be a little higher on this happening. But unfortunately, I've seen too many highway robberies in the MVP races to know that I think just with the counting stats and minutes coming down and usage, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think he'd have to almost check two boxes or come very close to checking both. And I'd almost take it a step further than XJ and say the Knicks would need to have the best record in basketball for him to, I think, overcome the perception that those other guys are better. And I thought about making that one of my bold predictions. So in that sense, I guess I am on board. I came into this preseason thinking like, all right, the Cavs are going to be the clear-cut 1 seed. The Knicks are going to struggle a little bit out of the get-go. And I almost think like maybe this is a little too high on like what they did against like a made-up Sixers team in another continent, in another time zone. But like I'm almost more encouraged and buying into the idea that this Knicks team could get off to a ridiculously good start, that they're going to lean into their depth, they're going to lean into their lineup versatility. And there's like an outlier world where this is somehow like a 65-win team and blows all of our expectations out of the water. And like in that world, like I could totally see him finishing top 3 just because the Knicks would be the story in the NBA. It's such a narrative driven award. The other thing is like if he led the NBA in points per game, and I mean, you guys already said it, so I won't belabor the point, but like his time under Tom Thibodeau was his time to do that. And Mike Brown has made it very clear that he's kind of restricted Jalen in the preseason. He hasn't really fully let the reins loose. He wants him to just incorporate himself into this new system, play off the ball, like leak out a whole bunch. Like we haven't got to see Jalen Brunson be Jalen Brunson, and the reality in the regular season will likely be some sort of middle ground between those two. I wouldn't be shocked if he's already had the best statistical season of his career. And at 29 years old with a like usage rate over the last 3 years that I don't want to say is unprecedented for a small guard, because we've seen AI, we've seen Steph, we've seen Dame, but like at like one of the higher levels for a small guard we've seen in NBA history, there is just such an incentive, I think, for the Knicks to at least to some degree keep Jalen in bubble wrap this year. I think it's just going to be so hard for him to get there statistically, but I like the idea behind it. And I particularly like if it's coming from a place like that the Knicks might just be a juggernaut, and Jalen is obviously going to be the face of that.
Just to throw a little bit more dirt on my own prediction, we have seen 2 64-win teams in the last 3 or 4 seasons, led by not guards necessarily that similar to Jalen Brunson, but not too terribly dissimilar in Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. Neither of those guys finished top 3 in those respective seasons. Booker finished 4th, Mitchell finished 5th. And which is why for this, I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying in terms of what would need to happen. This would need to be such a narrative-based voting thing, because he's not going to have the advanced stats. And it's an award that the advanced stats and the numbers are just so overbearing that it feels like it's been a while since we've had a more narrative-based candidate really bump into the top echelon, which is, again, it is a massive uphill battle for me to fight here with this one. But I also, like, I'm thinking about the poll that just came out where it's like Brunson was voted the second best leader in the NBA behind Steph Curry. Like, if there was ever going to be a year where the narrative candidate might sneak into the top 3, I wonder if this isn't the year. That's, I guess, what I'm banking on too. We'll see.
Yeah, I like it.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Something I personally love about FanDuel is something I like to call an emotional hedge. What that means is we all know the pain of the Knicks losing, or another team we're rooting for losing a big game, or something we've been hyping up happening that doesn't happen, like Deuce McBride hitting 3 or more three-pointers. What I can do with FanDuel is put a few bucks down on the Knicks losing or McBride hitting the under, so that when I feel the pain of that loss, I get to wipe my tears away with a little bit of cash. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little bit of something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats like I do, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
Jeremy, what's your second and tragically final bold prediction?
So one of the ones that I wanted to do or considered was, will the Knicks win an NBA championship? But I decided I can't, as the guest of a Locked On Knicks podcast with Gavin and XJ, not do something like, I'm in your home. I can't not do something that's at least a bit more mathematical and quantifiable. So I am steering away from that. And instead, I am going with the Knicks will rank in the regular season outside of the top 15 in turnover percentage. Now, for context, last season, they were 6th. They were 18th the year before, and the year before that, they were 5th, all, of course, being the seasons Jalen Brunson has been in a Knicks uniform. Speaking of Jalen Brunson, he led the NBA last year in average seconds per touch. We're talking about players played, I figured, at least 50 games, and the touches per game were at least 10. That's 287 players, and Jalen Brunson ranked first in terms of average seconds. And this plays, of course, into what John's saying with the MVP candidacy. He also ranked 107th in points per touch. So something to note, especially with the heavy usage. Fewer touches, of course, in general for someone like him will create more opportunities for others. That'll probably lead to more turnovers. In addition to that, the Knicks this preseason, as of this moment, 29th in the NBA. Of course, preseason doesn't really matter, but just for a moment here, 29th in pace among the NBA teams. Really 32nd when you consider the other teams that are not in the NBA but are counted in the NBA.com stats. They have consistently been one of the slowest teams in the NBA. I think that's very much ingrained. You have a lot of returning players. A lot of them are going to be accustomed to a slower pace, especially someone like Brunson. But also if they get to the point of playing faster, especially moving in transition, the Knicks, I believe, in terms of frequency in transition last year, they were 14th. I expect that with more leakouts to lead to more opportunities. But when you're playing faster and you're going more in transition, you're likely to turn the ball over more. And when you consider the fact that the Knicks haven't layered in a ton of play calling, it's been much more of getting comfortable with coordinating with one another. As you introduce more, there's going to be more miscommunication. More miscommunication could lead to errors being turnovers. So I think it's a sort of thing where as you peak towards the postseason, you're going to see it stabilize, but there will be a period where the Knicks turning the ball over right and left, and that's just the acclimation of how they weave things into place. But as time gets closer to when it matters, they get better. But as a full season view, I'm going to say that just with the complexity of adding things in, they'll rank outside of the top 15.
Yeah, I largely agree with this. And I think the biggest factor is something that you kind of mentioned already, Jeremy, which is just installing a new system is just going to lead to confusion. It's going to lead to some newness. And obviously, you're installing a new system that you want to be more up-tempo. You want to have more passes. The Knicks have always, under Tibbs, ranked lower on the number of passes per game. I think they were a little better last year than they had been in the past, I think, but they were still probably bottom 10-ish, bottom third of the league. I think we're going to see that kind of spike up. And then Mike Brown's Sacramento teams have generally turned the ball over about, average for the league, which is, you're talking about around 15th, around average, being below that. So I could totally see it. It's not going to be an issue to me. Like, I don't think it'll be like a bad sign or anything like that. But I think it'll probably be more of a good sign, honestly. More ball movement, more egalitarian offense, more of Jalen Brunson off the ball, more up tempo, more fast break opportunities. Installing some new stuff we'll have to see how it works. And then something that, like you said, Jeremy, kind of will stabilize as you get to the postseason. So overall, I think it'll actually be a sign of health for the Knicks, but I could absolutely see it happening for sure.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just checking. So I think the cleaning the glass numbers are probably a little different from NBA.com, but so the Kings the year before Brown got there, they were 18th in the league in turnover percentage. And I would have thought that they would have been right middle of the league. Clean the Glass has him 8th, had him 8th best his first year, and then 11th his second year, and they were 7th last year, although Brown only coached whatever it was, half the year. Your logic is completely sound, Jeremy. And I do think it's going to take some getting used to, especially if you think about where did Brown find his inspiration, I guess, for that Kings offense and maybe the offense he's trying to instill in New York. Golden State. What does Golden State often do? A lot of them is they, turn the ball over. I think that's a good take. I completely agree with XJ. If they're not around middle of the league in turnovers, there's part of me that might be actually disappointed because I really do want to see them try, don't just talk about doing something different on offense. Actually go out there and try to do it. And I just think that that's going to come with its share of growing pains. So I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I think the best counter argument against it is that even if the ball is in Jalen Brunson's hands less, it's still going to be in his hands a whole lot. And we all know, partially just because of how ISO heavy he is, he's incredibly good at not committing turnovers. Jordan Clarkson is very turnover, or at least has been the last couple of years. The first 10 years of his career, he was actually remarkably low on turnover percentage. I wonder if that was just because the ball was in his hands a little bit less and Utah empowered him a little bit more, but he's been pretty turnover prone. Malcolm Brogdon's pretty safe with the ball. The counter against this is that there's just not a lot of guys who are that adventurous dribbling the ball. And maybe XJ would know this. I actually don't know if you're more prone to heavy turnovers as a dribble heavy team or a pass heavy team. I think the increase in passing is the biggest reason why you're going to be right about this. They had a possession. I think it was against the Wolves that I tracked it just because I so rarely see Knicks possessions like this over the last couple of years. I think they threw 8 passes in 12 seconds. I'm like, all right, that is going to lead to some mishaps. The other thing that I think will be interesting is that I think this could be one of the most turnover heavy seasons of Brunson's career. I was just looking at how, and we did a whole combo about this, but how the Timberwolves regarding him, and they were just so incredibly aggressive about collapsing on his drives and throwing 2, 3, 4 defenders. And that's kind of that Thunder style of defense, right? Sell out against the drive, trust your athletes to recover to shooters, dare occasionally average shooters or hesitant shooters to quickly catch and shoot. And I do think maybe that just increases turnover rate around the NBA. But just because of Brunson's size, that could make him in particular a little more prone. I'm probably going too in depth in this. Overall, I think it's a great call, and I think you're going to be right about this one.
The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting. But getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready. From Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables, it's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. Delivery is fast and free, which is, to be honest, critical in this day and age. When my wife and I find something we love, we want to put it on display in our home ASAP, and Wayfair really allows you to make that happen. So get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, guys, basketball season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets, fast, easy, and stress-free. I personally love that with Game Time, you can include fees as you search, so there are no hidden fees at the end when you go to checkout. There's nothing worse than getting what you think is a great deal, and then after clicking through all those screens and getting all the way to purchase, you actually see it's double the price because of fees. And with Game Time, that never ever happens. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20. Swipe, tap, ticket, go.
I want to throw in one stat that may push against this one, Jeremy.
Sure.
The Knicks did get rid of I don't know if that's the right word. They no longer employ the rotation player from last season that had the worst on-off when it comes to turnover percentage, and that is Precious Achiuwa. They turned it over almost 2% more of the time when Achiuwa was on the floor, as will shock absolutely no one listening to this podcast, which was in the 12th percentile league-wide. So they got rid of Achiuwa. Maybe between like.
But what does that point to, right? More space does make passing a lot easier, and they are going to, I think, consistently play with more space. Though
there you go.
They will start Mitch, so maybe the starting lineup will be somewhat cramped.
Yeah, we'll see.